I'm Mallory Vaillant with Mallory V Photography, and this is my friend, Jessica Deen Norris, we're just having a conversation today. So Jessica is now officially an author, and she wrote a novel, and I want to talk to her about it. So that's why we're here. So Jessica, you want to tell us about yourself?
I'm just excited to be here, and yeah, I still kind of find it hard to believe that I wrote a book. It's been something that I've dreamed about for a long time, and I don't know. I'm a mom. I have 5 kids, and I homeschool and write and drink a whole lot of coffee. That's usually my thing. So
that's a huge part of what I want to talk about. Like, first of all, huge congratulations. Like, this is such a big deal. I'm so proud of you. Writing a book is like a really big task to accomplish. I mean, that has to have taken a long time, and you're homeschooling 5 kids. Like, that's amazing. I really want to know, like, how you did all that. What did you have to do to make that happen?
So the biggest thing was that I have started so many books over the past however many years. Like, it's been something that National Novel Writing Month, that's every November, would come around, and I would say, I'm going to write a book this year. Like, this is going to happen. And I don't know what it was, but I think like around 2019 or something, I was like, no, you know what? I'm actually going to do this. And I ended up hearing a little bit about self-publishing, being an indie author. And that was actually really motivating to me, because I've started a lot of different businesses over the years and everything. I'm kind of like a serial entrepreneur. And for me, it was like, I already like the business side of things. I like being able to do all of that. And so it was very motivating for me that, like, I could write a book and know that I could publish it, know that people would actually get to read it, because that's really what I want, is for people to read my book. And not, rather than going traditional publishing route where you spend years trying to find an agent. Then once you do find an agent, you might spend forever trying to find a publisher who's even going to, whether they even accept your book or not. And that was just with homeschooling and having kids and having very little time to write. It was like, do I really want to spend all this time doing this and then spend years just with it sitting on a shelf and not knowing what's going to happen to it? So whenever I started hearing more about self-publishing and how it's really become a very viable way of writing and getting your books out there, that was more motivating to me and kind of, I guess, got me, like, pushed me forward.
So that was like the turning point, like the catalyst for you to finally
do it. Yeah. And but then, even then, it still took me like a couple of years, I guess, to really get this one down. And I mean, I had all these ideas just from years of starting and stopping different novels, and I kind of took a bunch of stuff from that and started this one. And I mean, because it's a fantasy novel, so the world building and all of that takes a long time. And like I said, it probably took me over the course of 2 or 3 years just to, like, get this one done completely from start to finish. But I also started and stopped a lot of times along the way. There were times where I wasn't working on it at all because I was stuck or whatever. And I've finally gotten to a point where I'm writing pretty consistently every day and not having that starting and stopping. So the next book is going a lot faster than this one did.
So you already have the sequel in the works.
Yes.
And you already have a release date for the sequel.
Yeah, that one's going to come out in October.
Okay, so when's the release date for this one?
This one is coming out April 27th.
Okay, so you can pre-order now.
Yes, yeah, you can pre-order now on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any of those places. So
I pre-ordered my autographed copy, so I'm anxious to get that one in my hands. Okay, so the book is officially released April 27th.
Yes, coming out April 27th. Yeah.
You just closed pre-orders.
Yeah, I did 4 signed copies basically,
Okay.
just because I needed to be able to kind of see how much like to order and all of that, because those I'm ordering myself. But anyone can still go on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever right now and pre-order it. I don't know when those retailers will start shipping. You know, if you'll get it like on the release date, or if it'll be a few days after or whatever. But I will also have books, if you're local to Ville Platte, I'll have my books at Tincy's Corner on April 30th, and I'll be signing that day too.
Having a big book signing party.
Yeah.
So before I ask you about what the book is actually about, I wanted to like kind of emphasize that there's more to writing a book than just like putting the words on the paper. Like, you have researched and done the business side of writing a book too. And I think a few years ago the business is actually how you and I got connected. And Seth, like, because I don't think I knew y'all before a few years ago, even though like y'all graduated with my husband.
I know, it's funny.
And it's really funny. And so, but y'all have been people that I have talked to consistently over the last few years about business and about marketing. And as I transitioned into owning my own business, and I think that's kind of what brought us together, is like the passion and the love of business and marketing and doing the fun things that really make you excited. So was the business part of producing your book as exciting as writing it? Oh yeah, for sure. For me anyway, because I love all of that. So like, to me, you shouldn't go into self-publishing as an alternative to traditional publishing if you don't enjoy business things. Like, if you don't enjoy the marketing, if you don't enjoy handling everything, because you are the publisher in that sense. So you are the one handling, like, I hired my cover designer, I hired my editor, I had the book professionally edited. Like, it was very important to me that the book still be on par with a traditionally published book, and that it still be that quality. So I hired my own editor, hired my cover designer, did all of that stuff. But you have to be able to do all of the research and everything to find those people, and just to even be able to get the book formatted, set up to print, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Right. So that's a lot on top of the writing of the book. Yeah. But it kind of gave me a break from the writing of the book. Like, it's nice, I think, to be able to work on both things, like to have the creative side of things, and then to have, I guess, the more analytical stuff. That is why I do what I do. Like, the business that I have built perfectly suits me as it should. Yeah. The analytical side of understanding marketing and what needs to be created, and the creative side of the photography world. Right. So exactly. I know it's perfectly in line. I get it. I love it. It gives you a break from both, so you can switch back and forth. Yeah. It's fun. Okay. So tell us a little bit about Fireside. A little bit, like, a glimpse into the book, the plot, the characters, the setting. So this is kind of one of the things that, like, always makes me want to go like deer in headlights whenever somebody asks what the book is about. It's like, I don't know. I wrote it, but I don't know. No, but it's set in a fantasy world. The main character, Tiber, has magical abilities. He can create fire in his hands. The problem is, whenever he uses that ability, his vision goes away. Like, he's blinded by this light, and so he can use it, but at the same time he can't see what he's doing whenever he uses it. And that's the nature of the magic in this world, is that there's fire, ice, and lightning or storm, the different elements that come together. But there's also dragons. So I love dragons. And so there are dragons for each element, and each kingdom is based around that element. And Tiber thinks that he's getting away from his like abusive master caretaker. He's kind of, in a sense, like an indentured servant slave. And he thinks he's got a chance to get away by stealing this very valuable thing from someone, but
doing that, it ends up being, it's a dragon egg. This is in the very beginning, so it's not really like a spoiler. And so when that dragon egg hatches, that just sets off all of the events in the story.
Ooh.
So
I cannot wait to read
and I'm
it.
like, I'm explaining it, and it's so, I don't know, it's not easy.
So
I can read you the blurb. That's where I'm like, I could actually explain it.
I have loved reading like teen fiction fantasy novels for as long as I can remember, since I discovered like Harry Potter, like a lot of years ago. So this feels like it's right up my alley, and you know, even as an adult. But something that has always been mind-blowing to me is whenever you are literally creating this whole new world that no one knows anything about, not only are you describing it, you're creating it out of nothing. Where does that come from? Like, where does that imagination come from? And like, my mind sees things in pictures. Like, I have ideas in pictures, not in words. So whenever I go to translate what I saw into words, it's really hard for me. And that's something that I've been working on. So not only to do the translation part, but to have the idea in the first place of this brand new entire world that no one has ever seen or heard of. Where does that come from? How did that happen?
I don't know. I don't know. It's one of these things where you kind of, it all comes together in pieces, like little bits and pieces. And that's where the world building to me takes the longest to do. And I don't necessarily have it all like thought out and explained before writing the story. Some of the world building gets discovered as I'm writing the story, because it's just, sometimes you get stuck and it's like, you really don't know this background or history or whatever of the world. And it comes out as I'm doing the draft instead, or just whenever, like even during the editing phase, more pieces come together. I feel like, for me at least, writing is almost done in layers. Like, it's layer upon layer upon layer. It's not really like start to finish. I just came up with all the stuff for this world, came up with the characters, wrote the draft, then edited, then published. It's like you fix one little thing, and then answering questions is probably the biggest way that I've world built. Like, I come up with something, and then I'm like, okay, but if that's happening, then what about this? And I just write all those questions down, and usually like answering one question snowballs, and then I answer another question, and everything just starts like coming together.
That is like, that's amazing. Like, being that, like, it's definitely not linear. No, not at all. In fact, I have one of the things I did with this book is it has a map, and I created this map with, there's like some software that you can use to help, because I'm not artistic at all. I cannot draw for anything. And as I was doing it, I just put a few places in there, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with these places, but we're going to come back to you later. And one of those places, even with writing this first book, I had an idea of what I was going to be doing with it, but it wasn't until I started on book 2 that I was like, okay, now I know what I'm doing with that place in the world or whatever, or now I know where this came from. Okay. And so some things aren't even like figured out in the first book. I know everybody likes to think that like authors know all of the stuff ahead of time, but or like I'll read something and
it's all a sham.
Pulling back the curtain.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I've read so many, like, and you and I have talked about teen fantasy books that we've read, and so many of them, like, I'll read the book and then get to the next one, and it's like those movies that go back and forth, or like those TV shows, even like This Is Us, that show scenes from the past and scenes from the future while the character is in the present moment. And it's like, how did all these layers evolve? Like, where did this come from? It's almost hard to keep track of just watching it. So the person creating it must have been like, it must have taken, there's no way that one person could have gone all the way to the past and all the way forward for this many characters in their lives and all the things that happened to show how they all play together to make this moment in the present. Like, there's no way.
No, and it's definitely, it can't happen in like a linear way like that. No, because there is no way. And you can't know like everything there is to know about the world or about the characters. I know what I need to know. Like there's some things where I'll be doing the character's backstory and I'm like, I'm not really sure about this, but I'll just leave it. And sometimes during the story, I'll come up with something that I'm like, oh, that could have happened, you know, XYZ in this character's life or whatever. Like, in fact, while I'm doing book 2 right now, I was like, oh, this character, I know who their mother is now, you know, like where I had just kind of left it and didn't, because it wasn't needed. It wasn't necessary to the story till I got to a certain point in the story that I was like, oh, wait, this actually works. And I can piece that together and
that is so
add to it.
That is so interesting because my brain is very like, I like to see all the puzzle pieces laid out before I get started. So this is definitely not that. So it's
more like having the corners of the puzzle done and like you're just kind of starting to fill in some of the other stuff.
Painting the picture on the puzzle piece as you put it in.
Yeah.
That's very, very interesting. So where did the inspiration to write this particular novel come from? You said you've started and stopped a bunch. So
yeah, I mean, it's like there's all kinds of different ideas that kind of came together with this one. Like I had an idea for an elemental magic system before, and so I had stuff written down about that. And that idea in particular had more to do with like controlling the weather patterns and stuff, and I ended up changing it a little bit for this one. At the time, we were in process to adopt my youngest son, and he's blind. And so just in like thinking about that and how and what his world is like and everything, I don't know exactly when I came up with that idea or when it came together, but it's like started thinking about, well, what if you were trying to use this magic and you couldn't see anything whenever you were using it? Because to me, it's more fascinating to see magic systems that like have limits to them than the ones that can just do anything.
Wow.
Because the limits are really what makes it interesting more than because if they can do anything, then it's like, where's the story? There's not, you know. So
I got that.
Yeah. So that just kind of came in with it.
So is there any reality or true story involved in this book?
Not really, I guess, not that I can think of. One character in the story has a disability that is similar to a disability that my grandfather had, but other than that, and I hate to say it because it kind of like it just comes out in the story, but other than that, I guess, you know, so I was able to kind of draw on some experiences and stuff from that.
Okay.
But no, I don't know. I just
okay. So what systems did you put into place in your life to get this done? You're home every single day with 5 kids. How did you do this? Because I know there's going to be 10,000 people who see this that are going to say, there's no way I can't do that because of XYZ, because I have this, or I can't do that because I don't have this that she had. That's all, that's just your belief, and it's a story, and it's not true. And here's the fact, the truth that anything can be done. So what did you have to overcome? What systems did you put into place to be able to do this?
So the biggest thing was just at first I was like, when am I going to do any of this? And that was kind of during the plotting phase, whenever I was world building and making the outline for the story. That was probably whenever I struggled the most with like figuring out what times worked best for me, when I could work on it. And honestly, because I always had this idea in my head that I needed like 2 or 3 hours, you know, I was going to need to sit down for 2 or 3 hours and just write. And that was the belief that I had. And I finally came to realize, like, I don't have 2 or 3 hours to just sit down and write, really and truly. And so if I was going to do it, something was going to have to be different. Like maybe I wasn't going to be able to do it at my most optimal, like really, I'm a morning person. So in the morning from between 8 and 11 o'clock, that would honestly be my best time to write. I can't. That's whenever we're homeschooling. That's whenever the kids are up. That's not, so I don't get to have that best time to write. And it's okay. basically during the rough draft phase of this, I would do sprints. So just writing sprints. It might be 10 minutes, it might be 30 minutes. I kind of finally got my groove with doing like 25 minutes, the I think it's Pomodoro method. And that works really well for me. And I've kind of figured out about how many words I can write in just one sprint. And it kind of keeps you too from spinning your wheels, like just sitting there thinking for a while or whatever, you know, because I've only got this little bit of time. And so I would just tell the kids like, hey, 15 minutes or 25 minutes or whatever it is, 20 minutes. I'm putting my headphones in, like, don't come bother me if you can, unless you're bleeding or, you know, whatever. I'm going to write, and I would do 20 minutes. And the thing that probably helped the most with being able to do that, though, was that I would take a notebook and just kind of bullet point what I was going to write. So whatever scene I was on, I would bullet point out, and I wasn't like writing it out, having to be creative or any of that. I was just, Tiber does this, and then he does this, and then this happens, and then this happens. So I would work through the scene, kind of play it in my head. So then whenever I would sit down for a 20-minute sprint to write, I could do it quickly. I already knew what was going to happen. I just had to get it out in words.
Right.
And shutting off that editor inside of me that wants to like be a perfectionist about it. No, just get the words on the page. And that helped me to finally get the rough draft done. Now, then whenever I got into the editing phase, that was a whole other thing, because suddenly I was editing and I actually did need quiet. Like I couldn't do it in these short sprints because I needed to be able to read a whole chapter in its entirety and know that I didn't use this word like 5 times through the chapter or whatever. And that was when I started getting up earlier. So now I've kind of gotten in a groove where I actually get up at 4:30 every day. And I started doing something called the miracle morning. So I basically I have a little like stationary bike, and 10 minutes, I just get on the bike, and it's not even like enough exercise to really do anything except that it wakes me up. And so I do that. I drink some coffee, I read for a little bit, and by then I'm like ready to go. And so by 5:30, I've started writing, and I can usually do that for 2 hours. So then I have 2 hours that I have like quiet, and I get the most done during that time. And I can usually do a little bit more in the afternoon or whatever if I have time, but that's been working really well for me to know that like nobody can really take that away. You know, I can't get interrupted during the day or whatever. I can get that writing time done.
Right.
So
that's what works best for me too. Is like I wake up at like 4:45 every morning and do the things that I need to do.
Yes.
Before I get everyone else up.
Yeah.
And on the road. Yeah.
And maybe one day our kids will sleep in and we won't have to get up so early anymore. I would love that, but yeah.
So your kids are early risers too.
Yeah.
So what do they think? Did they say anything about like the book? Like, do they understand like how big of a deal that is?
I think so. I think my oldest two get it, you know. The others are just like, oh, mom's writing again, you know. But Genevieve, my oldest, is about to turn 13, so she's read the book and enjoyed it and everything. And then my next oldest, he thinks it's cool, but he's not quite old enough to read it yet. Like just where he is, probably not too much longer though. I think he'll be able to read it.
How old is he?
He's 10.
Okay.
So yeah.
Good. Well, what does your husband say about that? He's got to be super freaking proud. Like it's dedicated to him. So
I mean, he's been my biggest like cheerleader and supporter through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And he's given me time whenever I needed to on the weekends to really push through to like meet a deadline with my editor or whatever. He's been able to give me the time that I needed to get that done too. And so yeah, he's been awesome. But he runs a business too. So like right now it's tax season, so I'm having to do the same for him and give him the time to be able to get his work done. So
that's good. By the time tax season is over, Seth's gonna want to like go on vacation and not talk to anyone.
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah, exactly.
And not see a computer or anything else. Okay, is there anything else that you wish I would have asked you?
I have no idea.
Show them the book.
Oh, so this is the book, Fireside.
The cover is gorgeous.
My cover designer is amazing.
Yeah.
He did an outstanding job. So yeah, I
It's
love
really
how
pretty.
it came out.
It's really, really pretty. And I definitely want to highlight the back cover. I mean, the back inside cover.
Oh, and then the back, yeah, or the under the dust jacket. Oh, yes. Hold on. Okay, well, wait. So under there, you get the dragon eye. It's kind of hard to see. And then
check that out.
Mallory took that amazing photo of me. So
so like I'm like extra proud. I'm like, look at that, oh my God. And I have like a few more clients who are in the process of writing books that I have taken their photos that like those are gonna be the photos in their books. So it's like, oh my God, this is like huge for me too. But like, it's just amazing. It's so much fun and just wow, like I'm so proud. Like it takes so much commitment and it takes so much drive, and like those times whenever you get stuck and you're trying to figure out how to deal with that, if you want to call it a writer's block or whatever there is, being able to figure that out and understand that you don't have to have all the pieces put together. To me, that's speaking to myself, to be able to move forward and keep taking one step forward and be able to take breaks and come back to it. And like that's a really big thing. And designing your, like the time, giving yourself the time, the space that you need to get it done, no matter what else is going on in your life. Like it's possible for anybody. We can create our own reality. We can create the things that we want to create, and not in spite of, but because of the things that are going on in our lives. We get to give ourselves that grace to be able to do the things that we were put here to do. So I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. I can't wait to get my signed copy.